I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. Say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, Patriots, and welcome to another edition of the Douglas Ducote Show. Got many places to be tonight. Chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. And bear with me for a second while I adjust this camera because it looks like I just suffered through a earthquake. And I don't think that's any better. There we go. All right. That'll work for us. Boy, the last week has been unbelievable. I ended up having some issues where I could not do anything basically here in Lake Charles, Louisiana with the computer due to storms that rolled in. So we weren't able to do Tuesday's show. Didn't have enough upload speed to produce it. You really need to have 30 megabytes per second or better to make that happen when you are putting it out on a live stream to different platforms. And after the storm came through, that didn't happen. So it is up and running now, appears to be doing great. So we can continue on with tonight's show. I also am on medication right now, pain medication, because I had a little surgery done on the back of my neck earlier today. But there's so much that has to be talked about and needs to be talked about that I wasn't able to do Tuesday that I'm going to go ahead and run with it, and just bear with me if I make mistakes because of the medication. Well, guess what? That's just what it is. But I feel good right now. So that's a plus. Tonight's lead story. After securing Western military battle tanks to defend against Russia's invasion, Ukraine already knows it wants F-16s and other fighter jets next, the defense minister said yesterday. The next big hurdle will now be the fighter jets, the defense minister told Reuters in an interview. If we get them, the advantages on the battlefield will just be immense. It's not just F-16s. We need fourth generation aircraft. This is what we want. His comment came as Joe Biden announced that the U.S. would, for the first time, send 31 of our M1 Abrams battle tanks to aid Ukraine's war effort. The same day, Germany confirmed it will send Leopard 2 tanks into the war following weeks of debate over the latest escalation in weaponry. They didn't want to give us heavy artillery. Then they did. They didn't want to give us missile systems. Then they did. They didn't want to give us tanks. Now they're giving us tanks. Apart from nuclear weapons, there is nothing left that we will not get, the defense minister said. The F-16 is a powerful fighter jet capable of flying twice the speed of sound and acquiring targets in all weather conditions, according to the United States Air Force and the Pentagon. The Ukrainian Air Force, which has a fleet of aging Soviet-era jets, literally that are 30, 40 years old, also pleaded for F-16s and other modern jets last April of 2022. But was turned down because Joe Biden said that by doing so would mean World War III. Since Russia invaded Ukraine in February of last year, Western military aid has steadily been increased, literally weekly. As the latest escalation with military tanks from several countries was being finalized, top diplomats in the Netherlands said the country would consider an F-16 request with an open mind. Last year, on March 11th, 2022, Biden, speaking at a gathering of House Democrats in Philadelphia, defended his decision to veto the U.S. facilitated transfer of fighter jets and tanks to Ukraine to repel Russia's invasion, saying that's called World War III. At the time, and still today, Biden faces bipartisan blowback for rejecting Poland's offer to transfer 28 of their Soviet-designed MiG-29s after Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said that Poland had the green light to do so. Now, to be fair, Biden's exact quote was, "The idea that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks going in with American pilots and American crews, just understand, don't kid yourself, no matter what y'all say, that's called World War III." So, I guess since the Ukrainian military will be trained by U.S. forces and in the use of the tanks and the fighter jets, and will be the ones who actually operate them in the battle against Russia, World War III is no longer a possibility, according to Joe Biden. Even though Russian military generals are on record saying if any NATO country sends Ukrainian weapons or weapons capable of reaching deep inside of Russia, they would be forced to use nuclear weapons. Therefore, World War III would be next. And that would be the end of humanity. So, basically, this is what it is in a nutshell. The administration is banking that all the threats Russia has made about nuclear war and World War III is a bluff. It's the bottom line. Because every line in the sand that Russia has said do not cross, we're crossing. Continuing on, revelations are growing on Joe Biden's handling of classified documents. Here's what we know so far. The FBI found additional classified documents last Friday during their first search for classified documents at the president's personal residence in Delaware, stroking new scrutiny of Joe Biden's handling of sensitive and, in some cases, classified information. Attorneys for Biden stressed the statement on Saturday evening that the president is cooperating with the Department of Justice and special counsel investigations, and said the search in his Wilmington, Delaware residence was voluntarily. Now, let's keep in mind that the other classified documents found prior to Friday at 3 different locations were allowed by the Department of Justice and FBI to be conducted with no oversight, conducted by Joe's own attorneys, of which no law enforcement training or top secret security clearances are in place for them to be searching and looking through classified documents. The FBI called it planned and consensual in a statement, but the search, which the president's legal team waited to disclose until a full day later, is generating new questions about White House transparency on the issue that Biden last week suggested is insufficient. What do we know about Joe Biden's classified documents? Dozens of classified documents have been discovered in Biden's personal offices, his library, his home, and in one of his home's garages where it was kept near his personal antique Corvette. None of these locations were secured or in any type of safe as would be required for top secret U.S. classified documents. The initial batch of documents was discovered at the Biden-Pence Center last year when Biden's office was where Biden's office was located the day before the midterm elections. And the White House kept the genie in the bottle, so to speak. Their existence was not made public by the White House. CBS reported on the documents in January this year, 2 months after they were found, prompting a congressional inquiry. Joe Biden's attorneys were then allowed to search and found classified material at his residence in Delaware. And even more documents were uncovered during a second search of Biden's home that was conducted last Friday, as we know, by the Department of Justice and the FBI. This after the White House claimed that all documents had now been turned over and there were none left to be found. Biden's attorney, Bob Earl, also admitted that some handwritten notes from his vice president years were also taken into possession. Those were also not allowed to have been taken and should have been turned over to the National Archives at the end of his term as vice president. What are people saying? Every day it seems like they're finding more documents. Representative Michael McCurr, Republican, Texas, on CNN State of the Union, although it was consensual, the search the FBI conducted on Friday was not his attorney's. That really ratchets up the investigation. Sir, it doesn't. I think you should have a lot of regrets, said Senator Joe Manchin, Democrat, West Virginia, on NBC's Meet the Press. When Joe Biden said he has no regrets, I mean, this is very concerning here, said Representative James Comer, Republican, Kentucky, chairman of the House Oversight Committee, on Fox News this past Sunday morning. We need to know who had access to those documents. We need to have this information. Who did he show them to? Said Representative Mike Turner, Republican, Ohio, on CBS Face the Nation. So, what happened at Biden's Delaware home? Late Saturday, the Justice Department confirmed that the FBI spent most of the day and night conducting a planned consensual search of Biden's Wilmington home. So they didn't raid it like they did Trump's. They said, look, y'all told us that all the documents have been turned over. Is it okay if we send some FBI agents and the Department of Justice to your home to verify that ourselves? And, of course, the Biden said, come on. Biden was not there for the search, which the White House says took place early morning until 10:30 that night. He was spending the weekend at his beach property in Delaware. An official said the search was not the subject of any court-authorized process, as it was for Donald Trump, including an approved search warrant at Biden's home, was not given. Now, how is this different from Trump's handling of classified documents? A judge in Florida approved a warrant in early August in a similar investigation into the personal possessions of classified documents involving former President Donald Trump. Judges only authorize such search warrants if the requested authorities show reason to believe that either a crime had been committed or that evidence of such a crime could be found at that location. Although the Department of Justice and the FBI did not see it the same way for Joe Biden. Mar-a-Lago warrant authorized FBI agents, accompanied by the Justice Department prosecutor, to search Mar-a-Lago, Trump's Palm Beach, Florida home and private club, and remove the documents. There was no warrant in the search of Biden's residence. The Mar-a-Lago search was conducted only after months of back and forth between Trump and the National Archives and the Justice Department, which wanted him to return the classified documents that he had indicated he had in his possession. He never once denied having them. But Trump refused to turn them over, saying he had personally declassified them under his broad authorities as president, and that they were part of his personal papers. So, did the FBI raid Biden's home? No. The search was consensual, expected, and coordinated between both parties. The Mar-a-Lago search was a full-blown raid of the FBI and the Department of Justice and local law enforcement, and it was conducted on the basis of court-approved warrant. Biden administration officials have sought to portray themselves as being much more proactive and cooperative than Trump and his lawyers were, voluntarily searching his residence and offices in recent weeks in an effort to turn up more potentially problematic documents. They have been accused, however, of not being transparent enough about the searches and what classified documents Biden had in his possession. Under the Presidential Records Act of 1978, all documents created by a president or a vice president or their staff included in the National Security Council are property of the American public and must be turned over at the end of their term to the National Archives. And they're supposed to be secured by the National Archives. After the National Archives possess the massive volume of documents, many of them are eventually declassified and made available to the public, including presidential libraries. What does this mean for Joe Biden? Democrats have been frustrated by the drip, drip, drip nature of the disclosures, as they should be, and Republicans as well, although they do not see the situation, which is markedly different than the Department of Justice criminal investigation into Trump, as a deterrent to Biden's long-term re-election prospects. Democrats, such as former House Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff, had supported the appointment of a special counsel to oversee the case. Biden had been enjoying a bounce in his approval ratings and was enjoying increased support for independent voters and non-voters as the document drama was brewing. New developments in the document scandal could cut into Biden's support as he prepares to give his State of the Union address, which will be coming up in early February. I don't know the exact date off the top of my head, but if I just did a Google search before coming on, I would have it. Google if you want to see it. Despite the president's assertion that there's nothing there and the American people don't quite understand, they continue to focus on his documents. A Quinnipiac University poll found that 60% of Americans think the handling of them inappropriately, and 2/3 of Americans are following the media coverage and are concerned. So now we have Donald Trump admitting he had the documents, turning over a bunch of them, and then telling them he's not turning over the rest because he declassified them as president. And they're his, and he's going to take care of them and put them in his own personal library or wherever in coming days, weeks, months, and years. Those negotiations went on for quite a while until the FBI and Department of Justice raided his home and took back those documents that Trump said he declassified. Now, the justice system will be played out for us all to see and figure out if Trump was lying or if he was telling the truth, that he declassified him. And if he did actually declassify him and went through that procedure, then egg on the face of the FBI and Department of Justice. Biden, then, his attorneys, the day before midterms, somehow found classified documents in Biden's home. What they were doing there, how they got there, I don't know. Nobody knows. It's like a secret. How did this come to be that these attorneys were looking for anything in Biden's home, and who approved them to do that? What was the pretext for these attorneys going over there and looking for anything? What were they originally looking for? Did it have anything to do with Hunter Biden, maybe? And they just came across this? Were they looking for something that they were going to snuff out or hide or destroy? We don't know. But what we do know is they found classified documents that should have been turned over to the National Archives. They immediately contacted the Department of Justice and the FBI turned it over to them, and they turned it over to the National Archives. The FBI and Department of Justice was briefed. They chose not to get involved and told the attorneys to go back and search all of his stuff, figure it out. And they did. And they found stuff. Well, the original documents were actually found in his office he was using. Let me make sure you understand that. And then they go to his homes and start finding boxes of classified documents. And the FBI and Department of Justice still do not say we need to get involved. Now, why should they get involved? Well, let's start by saying that the attorneys do not have top secret security clearances from the United States government to be looking at classified documents. They don't have that. They're fucking attorneys. And they're being paid by Joe Biden. It's like the hen, or like the fox watching the hen house. They allowed them to continue to do this search. And then they found more documents. And they turned that over. Then a few days later, they found more documents in a different location. And they turned that over. Then a few days later, they found documents sitting in a garage where he parks his car. And they turned that over. And then after this was blasted all over every news media in America, paper, all in print, on all your networks, and all across the world for that matter. BBC has been running a whole thing on this. Finally, the Department of Justice and the FBI went, we don't have a choice here. We need to come to your house and look ourselves. May we do that, please? And of course, the Biden said, sure. And the FBI goes there last Friday, and what do they find? After the attorney said there were no more documents, I'll be damned, they found more documents that were classified. So, we got Trump and his classified documents. We got Biden and his classified documents. And Biden, by the way, has no idea how they got there. No idea how they got in his garage. No idea how they got in his office. No idea how they got in his house. He's clueless. Trump, on the other hand, says, I got them, yes. They're mine. I declassified them. I'm not giving them back to you. So can we add any more to this? Sure we can. Former Vice President under President Donald Trump, Mike Pence, I'll be damned if he doesn't have classified documents that he wasn't supposed to have in his possession. And the FBI went when he came forward and admitted, hey, these accidentally got taken. I didn't do this. The movers brought these in here. I started looking through all my stuff after what Trump was going through and now what Biden's going through to make damn sure I don't have any classified documents. And bigger than Dallas, they found classified documents. Now, so far, the FBI has not went in there and raided Pence's house. And Pence is on the up and up about it and said, this group of stuff that was moved by movers, not me. I wasn't there. I haven't even looked in that. Whether that's true, don't know. Whether he's lying out of his ass, don't know. All three of these people, we don't know. We have no clue. But the investigation is ongoing. Now, pretty much you can guarantee now that everything with the classified documents that Trump had is going to be washed away. He's not going to see any prosecution of this because of what's happening to Joe Biden and documents popping up all over the damn place in different locations. All right. The only way they would, I believe, attempt to prosecute Donald Trump would be if, God forbid, something was to happen to our current president. If Joe Biden was to pass on due to an act of God, then Donald Trump is going to be screwed because our corrupt Department of Justice and FBI will prosecute him Guarantee it. So I'm sure that Donald Trump right now is praying that Biden lives for many more years. Because if not, it's going to get nasty. Now, just 2 days ago, former President Barack Obama and former President Bill Clinton said, what? Drum roll, please. We would like to go on record to say that we do not have, nor did we take any classified documents from the White House. We turned over everything we were supposed to turn over to the National Archives. Now, if you believe that, I got some land to sell you in Lake Charles, Louisiana, pretty damn cheap. Oh, by the way, it floods. What they did, I just imagine, was what they took, they ran it through a shredder, then they dumped it in a fireplace, and poof, it's gone. Because they knew what was coming down the pipeline with Republicans taking over the intel committees and the House. It's just a matter of time. So now they're going to be scot-free of this. It's just utterly amazing. Former Deputy Assistant Attorney General John Yo joined Trey Gowdy on America Sunday Night to weigh in on both classified document cases involving President Trump and Biden. While Trump and Biden's cases note key differences, Yo argues the rule of law and the Constitution demands that similar cases be treated in a similar way. Trump's investigation began last August. The FBI's raid, the first batch of multiple batches, the document, you all know all that stuff. We've already went all through that. But the bottom line here is what the former Deputy Assistant Attorney General is saying and put out in his statement on Fox News is that Trump's going to walk. There's not going to be any prosecution. Because if there were, this would be proof positive to the American public that there is a two-tier justice system, one for Democrats and one for Republicans. And that is bullshit. Goes on to say that there is a third person that is involved in all of this with violation of handling of classified information and possible harm to our national security, and that was Hillary Clinton, who was running all the classified emails from the State Department through her private unsecured computer server. So let Congress have an investigation of all of these cases. Let's get the facts, then the Justice Department will have to be sure that they're treating all the cases fairly. The State Department report summarizes an administration review of the handling of classified information by former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's use of the private email server for government businesses, found that 38 individuals at fault in more than 500 security violations from the 30,000 emails that the State Department was able to physically review. Not to mention, Hillary Clinton saw to it that all of her personal electronic devices as her time as Secretary of State, cell phones, laptops, Blackberries, which they had then, were physically destroyed, and destroyed so much that the FBI could not retrieve any of the stored information that was kept in them. Now, why would you do that? Why would you go out of your way to have that stuff destroyed? Then, on purpose, after congressional subpoena, that she secure all these emails so that they could be seen in an upcoming investigation, she hired a company to delete thousands of emails. And in a way, in this program that's called BleachBit that even the FBI could not access ever again. Hillary Clinton knowingly and willingly went above and beyond to cover up her illegal actions with classified information. This is a fact. It is known. James Comey came out and told us this. Yet, she suffered no repercussions, proving that when it comes to the Department of Justice and the FBI, yes, there are some people that are above the law. Over the weekend, we had, and I mentioned this last Thursday. I don't remember if it was during, it was during my show last Thursday, that there was possibly going to be protests in Atlanta. Protests erupted in Atlanta on Friday night over a new police training facility after officers shot and killed 26-year-old environmental activist Manuel Perez Terrain, who identified as non-binary and used they and it pronouns. Terrain's first shot and wounded a Georgia state trooper before police returned fire. On Friday and Saturday evenings in Atlanta and other cities across America, protesters smashed windows, set police vehicles on fire, ignited fireworks, and threw rocks at police officers. CNN reported that it was a peaceful protest and even suggested that any violence was actually being done by the police themselves in trying to stop the peaceful protest. House Democrat Whip Catherine Clark's daughter was one of those arrested Saturday evening for spray painting a monument, assaulting a police officer during what was a peaceful protest. I love Riley, and this is a very difficult time in the circle of joy and pain in parenting, Clark tweeted. This will be evaluated by our legal system, and I'm confident in that process. Riley Dow, 23, was arrested and charged with assault with a dangerous weapon, destruction of injury of personal property, and damage to property by graffiti. But the police department referred to the suspect as Jared Dow and not Riley. Congressman Clark has spoken in the past about how one of her children is non-binary. Officers were called to the Parkman Bandstand Monument in the Boston Commons around 9:30 p.m. on Saturday evening about a protest. When they arrived, they saw Dow spray painting ACAB, which stands for All Cops Are Bastards, and No Cop City, an apparent reference to the police training facility in the suburbs of Atlanta that sparked the protest after officers shot and killed a protester who opened fire on them, injuring one of the officers. It was a state trooper that was shot. He lived, thankfully. The person that shot him, did not. While police arrested Dow, a group of 20 protesters began to surround the officers, screaming profanities through megaphones on the public street, causing traffic to come to a standstill. The protesters were interfering with the arrest, and an officer was hit in the face and was seen bleeding from the nose and mouth. 6 peaceful protesters were charged as domestic terrorists and arrested when anti-police protests evolved into violence Saturday night in downtown Atlanta and in Boston. They were seen earlier smiling or stone-faced in their booking photos. The Atlanta Police Department identified the 6 suspects, all from who came from other states, not the ones they were there protesting in. They were Najia Gear, 24, of Nashville, Tennessee, Madeline Flora, 22, of Spokane, Washington, Ivan Ferguson, 23, of Nevada, Graham Abbott, 20, of Decatur, Georgia, Francis Carroll, 22, of Kennebunk Park, Maine, and Emily Murphy, 37, of Grosse Island, Michigan. The The 6 are each facing 8 misdemeanors and felony charges. The misdemeanor charges are pedestrians in a roadway, willfully obstructing of law enforcement officers, riot, and unlawful assembly. And each also face felony counts of second-degree criminal damage, first-degree arson, interfering with government property, and domestic terrorism. Daily Mail reported that a person with the same name, age, and hometown as Francis Carroll was one of the 5 suspects arrested just last month on domestic terrorism and other charges at the self-proclaimed anonymous zone at the site of the Atlanta Police Safety Training Center. The Atlanta Police Department did not address questions as to why or how Carroll was released from custody in December. But it's pretty obvious. We have liberal judges that just give these kids a slap on the hand and set them free. In December, the Daily Mail also reported that Carroll was the son of a millionaire Maine surgeon who grew up in one of the most luxurious beach town homes on the East Coast, home of the George Bush family compound. So basically, she's a little rich, spoiled brat rebelling against society. On Sunday, Atlanta Mayor Andrea Dixon appeared on CBS News and rebutted those claims that the anti-police riot seen overnight in the city were not violent, noting how the suspects had explosives, burned a police car, and broke the windows of businesses. Dixon stopped short of claiming protesters were part of any particular organization, such as Antifa or BLM, but vowed domestic terrorism charges and must make sure anyone provoked in violence gets held accountable for their actions. Dixon, a Democrat, defended the Public Safety Training Center, arguing that the project aims to answer the call for the 2020 protests for the better training of police officers and firefighters. But the mayor argued the activists who remain at the construction site don't want to see anything built that supports police. So you can't have it both ways. Do you want police better trained, or do you not want them better trained? Make up your little liberal minds. Please, for crying out loud, you little snowflakes. Once again, a gunman killed 10 people and injured 10 others at a Southern California ballroom dance studio over the weekend. 20 to 30 minutes later, he went with his gun, entered a ballroom nearby, but the patrons wrestled the gun away from him and he fled. Despite police not releasing the suspect's identity or race, in typical fashion, some liberals and Democrats on Twitter were quick to pin the horror on white supremacy and anti-Asian hate before all the facts were known, as they always do. For example, Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat in New York, tweeted, "We must stand up to bigotry and hate wherever they rear their ugly heads, and we must keep working to stop gun violence." Representative Adam Schiff, Democrat, California, said Saturday's shooting was a horrific example of needless gun violence and bigotry towards Asian American Islanders individuals as a motive. Meanwhile, many Twitter users condemned the violence, punctuating their tweets with hashtag #StopAsianHate. Wisconsin State Representative Francisca Hong shared her condolences for the victims, tweeted, "We are broken as a nation to have mass shootings and white supremacy reign terror." Though not all details were known Sunday afternoon, authorities said that the suspect was, drumroll, an Asian man between the ages of 30 and 50. An Asian man sure as hell does not mean white supremacy was involved in any way, as the Democrats and liberals wanted you to believe. Then authorities said Sunday they know the suspect's name, but they declined to release it because it could complicate their ability to apprehend him. They released a photo showing the Asian man wearing glasses and a winter hat. The image was taken from the attempt shooting at the ballroom. Chester Chong, chairman of the Chinese Chamber of Commerce in Los Angeles, told ABC News 7 that the mass shooting was over a domestic dispute. Yet, how in the world would he have known this? He could not. By midday Sunday, police and tactical vehicles and bomb squad trucks surrounded a white van in a parking lot in Torrance, California, located nearly 30 miles from Monterey Park, where all this went down. Law enforcement source spoke out that an individual inside the van had been shot. He had killed himself. Hours earlier, Los Angeles Sheriff Robert Luna said authorities were looking for a white van, while witnesses reported seeing the suspect flee in such a vehicle. The sheriff declined to say what type of gun was recovered, but he did say the gun used in the Monterey Park was not an assault rifle. The shooting in Manhunt sent a wave of fear through the Asian American communities in the Los Angeles area that cast a shadow over the Lunar New Year festivities around the country. Finally, California authorities identified the suspect in the mass shooting that killed 10 people and injured 10 others as 72-year-old Hu Can Tran. A Congresswoman, Judy Chun, who spoke alongside Sheriff Luna at Sunday's evening press conference outside of Monterey Park City Hall, said, "I still have questions in my mind, which is, what was the motive for the shooting? Did he have a mental illness? Of course he did. Was he a domestic violence abuser? How did he get these guns? And was it through any legal means or not?" Sheriff Luna said the shooting at the Star Ballroom Dance Studio in Monterey Park left 5 women and 5 men dead and wounded 10 other people. Then, 20 to 30 minutes later, he entered the ballroom nearby with the gun, and people were able to tackle him to the ground, take away the weapon before he was able to flee. So, why do liberals and Democrats jump to accusing white people of gun violence before all the facts are known? This is wrong, and it needs to stop, because it puts the community in fear of white people. And that's exactly what those tweets did. Without having any evidence, without the person being apprehended, members of our United States Congress and other members of the news media, liberals and Democrats, took to Twitter to condemn white supremacy as the reason behind this mass shooting. White supremacists that hate Asians. It turned out to be an Asian man that, for whatever reason, shot and killed and injured Asian people. A New York City officer is taking legal action, asking a judge to overturn 40 days of lost pay stemming from a pro-Trump patch she wore while on duty. New York PD Sergeant Dana Martello and attorney Joseph Murray joined Fox and Friends today to discuss the lawsuit and why the consequences can be seen as double standard, as the department is expected to remain apolitical. It was funny because the judge had asked me if I thought my actions were appropriate. I looked at him and I said, I don't think they were inappropriate. He asked me to elaborate. And I explained, if it was an American flag, it was okay to wear on your uniform. A Dominican flag, it was okay to wear on your uniform. Or an LGBT patch, it was okay to wear on your uniform. No one would have cared or said anything. And that left the judge basically speechless, she said. According to the New York Post, Martello filed the lawsuit earlier this week alleging an unfair administrative trial. She claimed the investigators were very biased and politically motivated. Of course they were. The patch was about Trump. Martello wore the patch and it said, "Trump, make enforcement great again." While on duty, back in February of 2021 when she was working in a Black Lives Matter protest. A video circulated online, and the department was quick to respond. Members of the New York PD must remain apolitical. It's essential to the public trust and officers' ability to perform their jobs, former police commissioner Ducote Sr. tweeted. Rotello lost 40 days of pay as a result. She was suspended for 10 days and lost 30 days of vacation pay over the incident. Rotello was deemed guilty on all 4 charges at the administrative trial for expressing political beliefs and wearing unapproved patches. But her punishment didn't stop there. Rotello said she was placed on performance monitoring back in November of last year, where he noted that although the department reiterated its expectation for officers to remain apolitical, she argued that some high-ranking New York Police Department officials have not always complied with that policy, and nothing's been done to them. The former chief of the department, Terrence Monahan, got down on his knees holding hands of other protesters at a Black Lives Matter protest, and that was okay. That was acceptable. There were other chiefs and high-ranking officials at the New York PD who I understand were told by then Mayor de Blasio to bow down and kneel down on the floor at the foot of these protesters. It's okay, but God forbid somebody wears something that's even related to Donald Trump and they crucify you. Maria explained they believe the First Amendment rights are at stake here, given the political targeted nature of the policy enforcement. That's the sad thing, that this country is going down a path that is very dangerous. They pick and choose what to enforce and who to enforce it against. The United States Department of Justice announced yesterday that it believes the Louisiana Department of Public Safety and Corrections, right here in my state, has violated the 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America by routinely keeping people in prison past the dates when they were legally entitled to be released from custody. And I assure you, it ain't just Louisiana this is happening in. The department concluded that, number one, the Louisiana Department of Corrections denies individuals due process rights to a timely release from incarceration. Number two, Louisiana Department of Corrections failure to implement adequate policies and procedures causes systemic over-detentions. And number three, the Louisiana Department of Corrections is deliberately indifferent to the systemic over-detention of people in its custody. Officials said Louisiana Department of Corrections has been on notice of the problem for more than 10 years and has not taken adequate measures to ensure inmates are released on time. Louisiana Department of Public Safety and the Corrections issued the following response. The Department of Corrections is currently reviewing the U.S. Department of Justice report that was released today. Without a full review of the report's findings and documentation supporting said findings, it would be a challenge to provide a comprehensive response at this time. The Department of Corrections has been cooperative for the entire duration of the investigation and will continue to work with the Department of Justice throughout this process. 10 years it's been going on. The United States Department of Justice report says that between January and April of 2022 alone, just January to April, 26.8% of the people released from the Louisiana Department of Corrections custody were held past their release dates. Of those over-detained people, 24% were held for at least 90 extra days. 3 freaking months. Imagine, I don't care what your crime is, whether it's jaywalking or it's assault and battery, doesn't matter. You have a release date. You've been sentenced to serve X amount of time. And that release date comes and they hold you for an extra 90 days and just go, the hell with you. And the median number of days over detained was 29. In just this 4-month period, Louisiana Department of Corrections had to pay parish jails an estimate $850,000 in a minimum in fees for the days those individuals were incarcerated beyond their lawful sentences. At that rate, this unconstitutional practice cost Louisiana over $2.5 million a year over the past 10 years. The Constitution guarantees that people incarcerated in jails and prisons may not be detained beyond their release dates. And it is the fundamental duty of the state to ensure that all people in its custody are released on time, said Assistant Attorney General Christian Clark of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. Our investigation uncovered evidence of systemic violations by the Louisiana Department of Public Safety and Corrections that have resulted in routine confinement of people far beyond the dates that they were legally entitled to be released. We're committed to taking action that will ensure that the civil rights of people held in Louisiana jails and prisons are protected. We stand ready to work with state officials to institute long overdue reforms. Persons are legally incarcerated every day in America and are ordered by the court to serve certain sentences, primarily for punishment, deterrence, and rehabilitation purposes, said U.S. Attorney Brandon D. Brown, for the Western District of Louisiana. This ultimately benefits the individual, society, and the criminal justice system. There's an obligation both to incarcerated persons and the taxpayers not to keep someone incarcerated for longer than they should be. This can be costly from a physical and mental standpoint for the incarcerated individual and a waste of money for the taxpayer. Timely release is not only a legal obligation, but arguably of equal importance, a moral obligation. We look forward to working with the Louisiana Department of Corrections to ensure that it has the policy and tools going forward to prevent overdetention from reoccurring. You've been doing this for 10 years, and they still haven't complied. What is the Department of Justice doing? I mean, I'm glad this came to light. I'm glad that the news picked this story up. I'm glad we're talking about it. But here you are saying, we're going to get to the bottom of this and we're going to make them fix this problem. But yet you've been saying that, now we know, for 10 years. And they still aren't doing it. It is a job of the U.S. Department of Justice to protect the constitutional rights of every person, including individuals who are incarcerated, said U.S. Attorney Ronald C. Gathert, Jr. from the Middle District of Louisiana. While all government agents operate under constraints, that is no excuse for violating the rights of people who have served their sentences and are ready to start their lives anew. Federal law requires equal justice for all. My office is committed to enforcing that mandate. Today's finding demonstrates the Department of Justice's commitment to hold accountable institutions entrusted to protect the rights of citizens, including people within the Louisiana Department of Corrections, said U.S. Attorney Dwayne Evans from the Eastern District of Louisiana. Lawfully convicted people should not serve a day beyond their official designated release date. Louisiana has wasted money on incarcerating people beyond their release date and incurring legal expenses in defending lawsuits filed over the detained. We look forward to working with all affected parties to correct this problem. Individuals were relevant, those that believed they were held past the release date, are encouraged to contact the Justice Department by phone or by email. You're caught. It goes out on the news. It's exposed. The Department of Justice has been telling you this for 10 freaking years, that you're violating the constitutional rights of people, and we're still doing it. There's been no change. But yet, because the news media finally picked it up, you're talking about, oh, how you've been working with them, and oh, we're going to fix this, and oh, how wrong this is. But the Department of Justice has been telling you this for 10 years, and you've done nothing to fix it. And the Department of Justice hasn't done anything to hold you accountable. Let it be known that Louisiana is a Democrat state. It's got a Democrat governor. Does that have anything to do with it? Most governors in Louisiana are Democrat. Does that have anything to do with it? I don't know. What I do know is it's unconstitutional. And once again, we see the Department of Justice for the United States of America shitting on the rights of individual people. Whether it's Donald J. Trump or its inmates. This is not America. This is not how it's supposed to be done. This is wrong. What's going to be done about it, I don't know. But I will continue to follow this story, and I will reach out to some of these people that are named in this report. And hopefully, if we continue to shed light on this problem, I guarantee you we're going to uncover that it's rampant across America. It ain't just Louisiana. And that is just one of many problems that needs to be fixed. Anyway, thank you for being here tonight. You had many places you could be. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. If you haven't already done so, please go to DouglasDucote.com and check out the website. We've recently done some updates there and cleared out a whole bunch of stuff, and it's operating a whole lot better than it has in the past. Also, in the link to this video, once it goes up, and all my videos, you can see other social media platforms you can follow me on. Please follow me on Truthsocial, Twitter, Facebook, and Rumble. Rumble will be the future of this show in the future because of the continuous biased treatment of conservatives for speaking out like me. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving in the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, their families, first responders, our angel families, our blue and gold star families, and our country. May God bless the United States of America. Thank you, everybody. If anything happens that's important over the weekend, I'll be sure to reach out and do a video about it or do a live show. Otherwise, I'll see you next week on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central Time. Take care and have a blessed one.